I'm gay.
Good morning, day, or night, my little fur babies. Season 2 of the esteemed Smiling Friends tune just dropped this summer, and I've been enjoying it thoroughly as a bit of filler content between seasons of Paw Patrol. Season 1 was great in its own right, but I think it had a couple growing pains that simply came from it being the debut for the creators and their team. I made a little video last year talking about my thoughts on it. You can watch it if you want, you don't have to. I think for the most part, whatever little problems I had with it have either been addressed or could be dismissed entirely. Genuinely, the only thing in this season that rubbed me wrong was the performance for the live-action president guy in episode 2. It's not even like bad or anything like that. In fact, I think the actor did a pretty nice job considering he was talking to a couple of cartoon characters on a green screen, right? But I just feel like he didn't fully embody the character. Like sometimes the words he's saying don't quite feel like they're coming from him.
I can't. This upcoming election is my one chance to prove I'm not a fluke. I want to win something for once in my life so people will finally like me.
You know what I mean? Like once or twice he puts emphasis on the wrong words in his sentences.
Yeah. You're saying I could be the land president.
Which sure makes it feel like he's repeating words he memorized from a script rather than fully selling the illusion that they came from his character's malfunctioning brain. Even in this case, the episode is still good, just with some awkward deliveries peppered in. I think something I really came to appreciate when watching this new season was the multimedia art style of the show, which I praised in my old video since I felt relaxing the rules on what designs can and can't appear in the show gives the creators freedom to go crazy with them, and it also opens the door for a whole new avenue of humor. One of my favorite new jokes from this new season is the bit about there being a secret fifth smiling friend named Tyler, who's a, no offense, kinda schlubby looking live action human who we've never seen before until now, and probably won't see again since he gets fired in the same scene he's introduced.
Yeah, f that noise, man. I'm just gonna keep making my music.
Respect, man. Respect.
But on top of opening up the possibilities for multimedia-based humor, the style also has a sort of heartwarming quality to it when you think about it. On most movies or shows, the goal is to take the talents of many people and meld it into the artistic vision of the few people at the top. In the case of animated projects, a handful of animators, each with their own unique styles and preferences, are brought together and tasked with following the set style of their project, effectively muting their own artistic voices in favor of their collective goal. And this is largely true of Smiling Friends as well, with its predominantly 2D adult animation style to which dozens of animators adhere. But the show also goes out of its way to go off-model and shine a light on the styles of particular animators or other kinds of artists. I guess I'm specifically thinking about the character of Professor Psychotic's brother, who's essentially a homage to the online filmmaker Joel Haver, played by Joel Haver, in Joel Haver's signature style, animated in part by Joel Haver. I don't know, I just find it charming how they go out of their way to show off individual artistic talents in their show. It just makes Smiling Friends feel like a celebration of creativity and individualism and whatever. Pretty cool. Something I talked a good bit about in my old video were the show's characters, specifically the boss and Alan, who I felt were weakly characterized. Like if you'd asked me to write a bio on each of them, I wouldn't exactly have known what to put. Alan was mostly shown in the pilot episode to be fairly eccentric. Like the whole episode was him trying to find his epically random piece of cheese, which is just awesome by the way. But for the rest of that season, what scant amount we see of him doesn't seem to be that kind of character at all. Like he feels much more like an average sort of guy who just happens to be red. In season 2 we get a lot more of him, and yeah, it seems like they've more or less moved away from the whole Alan likes cheese thing, but he still does sometimes speak in his weird little Alan accent, so it's kinda hard to say what's going on there. But it's probably not worth worrying too much about, and I'll explain why a little bit later. That being said, there's plenty of new characterization going on with him. Some traits that come to mind for Alan are withdrawn, aloof, he can be petty or inconsiderate, but he's also loyal to his boss, and I think he's also implied to be something of a Casanova, which is very funny to say of a tall red mutant critter. I think this small collection of character traits is enough for me to vaguely understand what his character is quote-unquote supposed to be, so I think my beef with Alan has been squashed. The Boss, or Mr. Boss, or whatever the his stupid piece of shit name is actually one of my favorite characters after watching the new season. Before now, I was never super sure of what they were going for with this character, and I think it's because he's so many things at once. He's obviously, creepy, insane, and scary. Like, that's the first impression you get of him in the pilot when you see him breastfeeding his 18-year-old son, Jason. So from that point on, it's easy to sort of file him away as the quote-unquote crazy one. But then he starts doing things like changing his accent at random, Here he's getting a butt massage because why not? And here he's wearing a thong and singing at a funeral. And you start to think like, is he doing this because he's quote unquote crazy? Or is he supposed to be a nihilistic vehicle for Edge with no actual character? Because it seems like his primary purpose in all the scenes he appears is to deliver shock humor. It just feels like his character has no underlying meaning to it. After watching season 2 though, I can say that I don't think the boss is a nihilistic character, because now he has a lot of moments where he's not just horrifying or edgy. Sometimes he's quirky, he's zany, he's spontaneous, he's something of a prankster, and sometimes he's just friendly. I think that's why he changes his accent every now and then, and says things like, "Ear," because he's just a whimsical type of guy on top of being crazy. He seems to have more than one set of character traits that he swaps out depending on what the scene, or joke, demands of him. He's amorphous. He can be whatever the story needs him to be for it to work. The exact moment where this perspective really clicked for me was this bit where the boss, being his creepy, enigmatic self, folds his finger into the shape of a paperclip, and after a brief conversation, he essentially drops his character and says,
Cool. I really hurt my finger doing that paperclip bit.
Yeah, no, I saw.
At that point, I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. Smiling Friends is a show that's constantly phasing between different levels of reality. Sometimes the boss is crazy, sometimes he's zany, but at this point, he's essentially breaking character. It's a fool's errand to try and pigeonhole him into one specific role or archetype, because, depending on the moment, he could inhabit an assortment of different personalities. And I think this amorphism, or maybe some less pretentious word, is a running theme that applies not only to the boss, but to all the other characters into the world of Smiling Friends at large. Alan sometimes speaks with his particular accent, sometimes he doesn't. It just depends on the scene and what he needs to be for it to work and be funny. The yellow guy also gives us an interesting example of this when he says,
Pim, the world we live in stresses me out, dude.
Really? Why?
Just like never-ending, constant chaos. No, it never lets up. I hate it. It's not good.
Okay. I mean, you didn't like when the man came out of the egg, though? That was kind of nice, wasn't it?
No, that's what I'm talking about. It's exactly what I
you
mean.
didn't like that?
He's essentially breaking the fourth wall here, pointing out how chaotic this cartoon's world is, and implicitly comparing it to the real world, which can also be chaotic, but probably doesn't have any homunculi jumping out of eggs. Charlie could easily be the straight man of Smiling Friends who grounds us in reality and points out this world's bizarreness, but he isn't always. Here he is in another episode, unironically enjoying a TV program about two giant obese men fighting over a ham in space, and getting annoyed when Alan tries to turn it off. Charlie is directly participating in the absurdity here, rather than critiquing it. In this moment, he is deeper within the show's version of reality, and further from actual reality. He is essentially a different character in this particular scene from the last one. I think I vaguely had this new revelation swimming around in my head when it was kinda confirmed by my viewing of the season 1 commentary featuring the show's co-creators Michael Cusack and Zach Hadel. I think this was supposed to be an exclusive feature for the Blu-ray release of the season, which I absolutely did not buy, but since it's Smiling Friends, of course it got ripped and uploaded in full to YouTube like the rest of the show. And I guess no one gives a In the commentary, the creators talk about their characters and world in a rather whimsical type of way, sort of speculating about them as if they don't know everything about them.
Mr. Boss. We still don't really know what his name is.
They call him the boss and Mr. Boss. We're thinking, is his name just Boss? I don't think we really know yet. Maybe
No, we don't know.
The devil is a Discord moderator.
Is he talking to other people from hell, or does he have contact to the...
No, those are just guys from like Mexico and like the Philippines that he talks to. He plays CSGO with. Mip is the
Because
one.
what was going on here? Was Charlie really... Was Charlie really going to do something?
I don't know. I hope not. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think it's nice. I think it's beautiful if they did
it would be good. You know, you're right. I think he's more kind of infatuated with like the power of it. It's like how the ancient Romans, or like Roy Cohn. You know, it's like it's the power. It's the high of like man, look at all the shit I'm doing.
Yeah.
I find this outlook on character and story writing very interesting because it's so free form. Instead of meticulously planning out these characters' backstories and putting hard rules on what they can be and how they can act, I get the sense that these creators designed their characters with a few core components and themes and details and, in a sense, let them loose, allowing themselves to explore the characters spontaneously as they write more about them. I'm sure there was a good bit of character and world building done beforehand, but nothing in comparison to something like a drama, you know? Like it ain't Saul. I think if this was anything other than a comedy, especially one as surreal as Smiling Friends, it wouldn't work so well because writing straight ahead like this opens the door for a lot of contradictions. For example, in Star Wars, the original ones, you can very easily tell with hindsight that they were kind of freestyling it. which is why in the first one, Obi-Wan Kenobi says that Darth Vader killed Luke Skywalker's father, but in the second one, Darth Vader reveals that he is Luke's father, and in the third one, Luke asks Obi-Wan's ghost why he flat out lied to him, and Obi-Wan gives the most limp piece of shit excuse ever.
Your father was seduced by the dark side of the Force. When that happened, the good man who was your father was destroyed. So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
The characters in a world of smiling friends aren't meant to be taken seriously though, and so they can be much more vague or even contradictory at times. Here's a bit from one of the new episodes where Charlie kisses Pym on the head, which he does so fast that you probably didn't even catch it. Is it quote unquote in character for him to do this? Probably not. I don't think his religion would approve of that sort of behavior, but it's okay. It's a comedy show and it's funny, so all is forgiven. I think this conclusion leaves us with a question though. If we let smiling friends get away with inhabiting such a subjective space, on what grounds can we really criticize it, especially its writing? If the show is an amorphous blob, then how can you ever poke holes in it? Well, there's plenty of stuff you could criticize this show for, formalistic stuff, the story structure and pacing, as well as the performances, visual and vocal, especially their delivery, and the animation quality, the art quality, the sound design, editing, etc., etc. I'm sure there's something to criticize here that I'm not perceptive enough to notice, but the fact that I have next to nothing to say about any of that crap goes to show that Smiling Friends stands on very solid legs. In the same way that a hastily improvised conversation is balanced out by a genuinely good performance, or a comically crude animation is balanced out by a meticulously crafted one, Smiling Friends' overall quality and downright inventive sense of humor balances out the parts that are loose, undefined, or contradictory. If it was any less competently made or any less funny or had any less heart put into it, I wouldn't put so much confidence in it when it treads the waters of irony.
That's the end of the video. You little twerps.